Coming from the USSR and seeing our family's property be confiscated twice due to the success and jealousy of the people around you, we have a saying in Russia, tell everyone you are doing bad, otherwise they will steal from you. I feel like a lot of young people out there have no idea what the socialism is and how bad it could be for the entire civilization. I feel emotionally drained every time I fight people around me, trying to prove them wrong, and feel like all the fighting is taking me away from my personal freedom or goals. How can I light up my goals along with helping people see the true nightmare which socialism is? That's from Vladimir.
Hey, how you doing today, brother?
Pretty good. How are you, Stefan?
I am well. That is a terrifying statement and experience, so I completely understand where you're coming from. When you see disaster approaching and people won't listen, oh man, what do you do?
Yeah, and it's just arguments just bounce off the wall. Nothing sticks in there every time I try to talk to them and just use some logic. It didn't work because it was Russia. It's not because it was communism or socialism. It's not the infrastructure. It's the people behind it. But if we trust this in the right people, then something magically will happen, and it will be a much better system than you had before. Doesn't work that way. It's a system.
So can you tell me a little bit about or a lot, if you like, about your family history and what happened?
Okay. My family in late 1900s late 1900s to early, were counts. Like, they had a county, they had mansion and everything, and that was taken away from us. But when there was a revolution, socialist revolution in 1916, we were lucky we didn't get killed, I guess, would be. But my whole family became on the streets and was trying to work their way up and tried from the ground zero. And we opened up one of 5 manufacturing Kent facilities in Uzbekistan, which was part of USSR. It was a Central Asia. And that was being taken away from us in like early 1950s by the government again. Then my dad opened up a transistor business, and he was selling transistors to England, to France, to a lot of Western countries. USSR falls apart, copper prices went up by 300 times, and because he was locked in the contracts, we became bankrupt. Then he opens up the furniture business, and eventually we had to relocate ourselves because the mob, the policeman problems, like the taxations, the firemen. And then he finally opened up the drywall knife business that actually was very, very successful back in Uzbekistan when it became independent, and was enough for us to come to the United States and to have some savings to start fresh again in this country. So that's my history, kind of.
It's sort of admirable, and it is in fact admirable, the degree to which your father just kept trying. You know, like that Chumbawamba song, I get knocked out, but I get up again. I mean, that's impressive.
And we're trying to do it now too, with a couple different ideas.
Right. Do you come from a Jewish background in Russia?
No, we're Russian, Christian Orthodox.
Okay. Yeah, it just sort of reminds me of, I did the Truth About Ayn Rand Part 1, talk about her sort of life. And, father got raped by the communists financially and economically. And, I mean, she had to get out. It's sort of funny. Years later, she met her sister who stayed, and her sister was still defending the regime as it stood.
Yeah, my grandmother defended it all the time. I think she was deeply indoctrinated by it. So we always had this occasion where we all get, when we get drunk, obviously Russians to some extent, and there it goes. My dad tries to say bad things that the socialism did, and she would try to defend it, and they would be fighting for hours and hours. And my dad usually would win the arguments because there was logic behind it.
In general, and I know that this is not statistical, it's anecdotal, but in your experience, do you find that there's any difference in the genders between who is more amenable to socialism.
That's a good point. I think women on average would like socialism a little bit more.
Sure. Because
the teacher's gonna get paid the same amount of wage than the engineers would. But at the same time, being an engineer is a lot more difficult than being a first or second grade teacher, in my opinion.
Right. And of course, in general, socialism is what women have evolved to adapt to. Right. In other words, not working directly for your resources, but instead having a man or a patriarchy provide those resources to you. That's what women have adapted to. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just based upon the nature of the fact that women for many decades of their life are physically, functionally, largely, repetitively disabled by pregnancy, by childbirth, by healing, by breastfeeding, by sleeplessness with the babies. And of course, women aren't out there getting a whole bunch of stuff for themselves. They're second-handers. They rely on other people to bring them resources. And the more resources they get, the more resources women get, the more attractive they are. Right? Like that old song, you don't need money when you look like that, honey, do you? Right? Because guys are going to buy you drinks and buy you dinner because you look that sugar baby kind of way. So for a woman's physical vanity is swollen and her level of attractiveness is enhanced in her own mind the more free stuff she gets from men. So when a male politician comes along and says, I can get you free stuff.
That's
free stuff for women is like free sex for men. It's very, very hard to resist. Politicians political life is porn for women in terms of what they, and women can't quit socialism any more than men can just walk away from pornography for the most part. So I think that reality is something that needs to be understood, and it's no accident that women generally choose security over freedom, because men can choose. If a single man can take risks, because it's only he who goes hungry if he fails. But women who've evolved to be mothers prior to the modern Western age, they don't have the capacity to take risks because lives literally depend upon them, not just that they have to give food to their kids, but because they themselves have to generate milk for their babies. They need extra calories for that. And so they can't afford risk. They, bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, which is why women choose security over freedom, which is why when women get the vote, you get a welfare state within 10 to 15 years. It's almost inevitable. So the fact that women are more partial to socialist ideas, and I say this, with Thatcher and Rand and other women who are, very strong against these kinds of things, but these were very happily married women, at least for most of their lives. So the only women who are for the free market are those who are happily married, which is why if you want to destroy the free market, you have to separate men from women, because then women will vote against the free market and for the security of state handouts, which destroys the free market, which is why Marxists and feminism go hand in hand. Marxism wishes to destroy the free market, and feminism separates men from women. And once women are separated from men, they turn to the state for security, and the free market is destroyed.
And then man is kind of bows down to the system and accepts it to the point.
Well, men can't fight the state. And at least Western men, to a large degree, have evolved because they need so much K-selected investment in their children. They've evolved to defer to women. And so when women get the vote, and there are Marxists around, and the big challenge was Marxism, not fundamentally women getting the vote. People say, oh, women got the vote, and we get... Yes, but that's because there was Marxism around, which programmed a lot of the intellectuals. They say, Marx says that religion is the opiate of the masses, and it's a pretty true statement to say that Marxism is the opiate of the intellectuals, which is even more dangerous.
Oh my God.
So, you get Marxists around who hate capitalism, and they convince women to separate from men, and, we did the dominoes just now, I don't need to do them again. So you're not, when you're speaking to evolution, when you're speaking to biology, facts and arguments don't matter, because genes are evolved to reproduce, not to be philosophical. Genes are evolved to get that sperm to the egg in whatever way possible, not to pursue abstract reasoning goals. In fact, the mind developed, particularly the capacity to defer gratification, developed so that men could accumulate additional resources with which to get women. right? It's all around the reproduction of the genes. And how does philosophy help you reproduce your genes? Well, these days, being philosophical is actually kind of a threat toward the reproduction of your genes, because a lot of women will go like, ew, free market, you're a cold, heartless bastard. I'm taking my eggs elsewhere.
Yeah, that's kind of a problem I'm having right now, to be honest.
Oh, are you on, have you been banished to Eggless Island?
What does that mean?
Uh, chick's not hot for the free market guy?
No, not so much. I'm dating a couple on the side, but I want a like serious relationship. Like start getting ready to make a family, make babies, and find a way to support them and to have them grow. And it's difficult to find the right one that it doesn't have all the clutter and junk in her head. To be honest.
Right. Right. Well, no. Good that you're not getting involved with a crazy woman or a woman who's not solid and sensible and down to earth, because those women will merge with the state and often, and it will be a very, very unpleasant second half of your life.
I did, and I'm glad that I stopped it.
Right. Right.
And so
Now, as far as what to do about all of that, I've done this a million times before. So you just have to be as public and as passionate and as honest as possible, and just see, it's the old thing, run your flag up the pole and see who salutes. So I'm going to get into all of that. But the horrors of socialism, well, it's see, the thing is, it's horrible for you and it's horrible for me. I don't know that it's horrible for everyone.
no, the average
If you
person
look at
lives
some-
very
yeah,
happily
look at-
in USSR.
Well, I mean, yeah, maybe, but certainly, if you've got a lower IQ, you just want stuff now. You don't want the conditions for future wealth.
No.
Like if some guy's got something that you just want the government to take it and give it to you now, not later. Like when I say to people that I say, well, only the rich can afford these things, and therefore that's bad. It's like, no, only the rich could afford cell phones to begin with, and the rich were willing to pay $10,000 for a cell phone you couldn't stand under a tree and use. It just sort of pointed at the satellite. I mean, it was crazy, right? These shoebox things. But because the rich were willing to pay $10,000 for that, you now can get a cell phone for $30.
Yep.
Right. And people are just like, but that took a long time. It's like, yeah. And if you're smart, you don't want that process interrupted because you want cool stuff in a decade or two. But of course, idiots, children, and drunks, they want things now.
Yeah.
They want things now. And because they have the state, they can get them because the state can just grab stuff and hand it to them. So idiots, I think, are perfectly fine with socialism, and it doesn't matter how long or how much you explain that the deferral of gratification is really important. Well, the deferral of gratification is associated with higher IQ. I mean, you're asking a toddler to get something from the top shelf. Just, it doesn't matter. And we've got a presentation called The Death of Reason about all of this. So don't waste your time on that stuff, man. Seriously, it is not your job to go around trying to get short people to become tall.
Well,
It's not your job to lecture my hair follicles until they produce a mohawk, right? It's not your job. There is a physical incapacity among a significant number of people to listen to reason and evidence. Now, I don't know if they had been raised with philosophy and reason and evidence, I'm sure that they would have a much greater ability. But given how much propaganda there is in society these days, and it's from every single conceivable direction, given how much propaganda there is in society, less intelligent people have no chance. Like, functionally, they have no chance whatsoever.
okay.
And, Chinese guys aren't often tall enough to play elite basketball, but if they're also severely malnourished as children and grow up stunted, well, they really functionally have no chance. Even the tall ones probably wouldn't have a chance at that environment. So it takes a huge amount of intelligence to be able to overcome propaganda, which is why propaganda is so unfair to the less intelligent, because it denies them the very tools that they need most desperately to enhance their intelligence. It doesn't matter if I overeat at lunch because I could just go get more food. But if I'm on a boat in the middle of nowhere and I have to ration myself, then it really matters if I overeat at lunch because I'm going to run out. And so this is what's so brutal about government schools. People say, well, government schools are needed to egalitarianize education for the poor and so on. It's like, nope. because poor are generally lower IQ, not always, but poor are generally lower IQ, and propaganda destroys your capacity to use your mental capacities well if you're not that smart.
Okay.
The smart people will you often find a way to overcome propaganda because they're sort of relentless and restless curiosity, and of course, the smarter you are, often the less you are susceptible to immediate negative social repercussions, right? So smart people who are committed to the truth say, oh, well, someone called me a racist. Okay, well, who cares, right? Because the important thing is truth in the long run. But people say, well, why are people so susceptible to being called racist these days? Because they're dumber. Because intelligence has been declining, because welfare is this giant eugenics program to idiocracy style breed idiots and not breed smart people. And idiots are very susceptible to social pressure because they don't have the deferral of gratification and the long-term goal-oriented mindset to allow them to deal with being called mean names and, whatever. Like, I mean, you've got a bigger and longer goal. So this political correctness is a reflection of the falling intelligence. And you can see this particularly in university campuses, the Triggly-Puff phenomenon where people are just screaming, keep your hate speech off my campus. This is not, it's not hate speech because it bothers you. It's only hate speech because it bothers idiots. And they just call it hate speech because they're emotionally triggered and they have no intellectual way to manage their own emotions and accept that being upset is foundational to the progress of society. If hate speech had its way, there never would have been an end to slavery because the people all intellectually and financially and emotionally invested in slavery would have called abolitionism hate speech, shut it down, and we'd still have slaves. So, this lowering of intelligence as a whole, you can see this with the speeches of presidents, the analysis that they're continually declining in complexity. And this is partly the result of immigration of low IQ groups, but it's also the fact that schooling has gotten worse and the fact that the standards for university have lowered enormously. And of course, universities are very keen on promoting feminism. It's not that much of a mystery. Universities like to promote feminism. Because if women reject feminism and accept the argument that it's better to have children when you're young, your eggs are fresh, and you have lots of energy for sleepless nights, if women want to have kids early and want to have maybe their education and their careers later on, well, they're not going to go to university. Or if they do go to university, they're going to go to university for a semester or two to get their MRS degree, find a good guy, and settle down. And so given that 60% in a lot of places of university placements are women these days, and given that women wouldn't be going to college much if they were having kids when they were younger, of course colleges want to promote feminism, which says defer having children, because colleges want the women to come in the here and now so that they can fill their fat coffers and destroy Western civilization. So go ahead.
That's I think the biggest challenge for me right now, Stefan, to be honest. Personally, I'm relatively pretty successful, like financially dependent guy, and I'm trying to do a couple startup business, and I have enough resources to do so. But then I'm looking, and I have two ways to either go MGTOW and just...
That's MGTOW. For those who don't know, that's MGTOW, men going their own way, which is to eschew or to avoid committed relationships with women and certainly marriage and children.
Correct. And I have a couple of women that I kind of sort of date, but I know that it's not something I want to long term. And a part of me wants to actually create the family, create the life, and find the right one. But coming from Russia and have all this kind of traditional values kind of been poured into me, I'm looking here, I'm like, I don't know what to do, because these women here are they are impenetrable, like mentally. And the more I'm actually living in the United States, and I've been here for about 11 years, the more I want actually to bring, honestly, for me as a partner, somebody from the other, like probably Russia, Ukraine, or somebody who speaks the same language, who has like more of a feminine, nurturing views about the life, who actually want me to be the main provider, and she sits at home and she takes care of the kids. But to do that, I'm running into a huge risk of, hey, is she actually doing it because she wants to be my partner, or is she doing that because she wants a visa in a more of a progressive country?
How tall are you?
5'9".
5'9". Are you fairly, Russians are renowned for upper body strength. Are you a fairly strong guy?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think you could carry a water buffalo?
No.
All right. Well, Cambodia's out then. That's a challenge, and you know, I mean, there are ways of figuring out whether or not a woman is into you for your money or your
Resources.
green card or visa or whatever it is, so you don't end up like that sad sack silver fox jailer in Orange is the New Black. But certainly there does seem to be a fairly high demand for women who are feminine. And, you know, I can't for the life of me understand why you'd want to get married. If you're not gay, why would you want to get married to another man? Right? To a woman who just says, well, I'm exactly the same as a man. It's like, well, then why would I want to get married to you? Because, and again, if you don't want to have kids, fine, do whatever you want. But if you want to have kids, someone's got to stay home. And it really should be the one who has the milk bags attached.
Stefan, honestly, at this point, I'd rather marry another man and say, "Hey, dude, let's play some video games and let's watch some TV and have fun," instead of marrying somebody who's pointing finger at me. We're equal. We're equal. Now go mop the floor. Like,
right. Yeah, I mean, you marry a dude, at least you're going to get good twitch reflexes and a desire to play Call of Duty 4, right? So,
pretty much.
as opposed to, we're equal, now do my work. So, yeah, as far as, as far as the horrors of socialism goes, there are some significant challenges to getting people to understand it. And because there are no morals left in Western society, other than political correctness, which is not morality, but a semi-jihadist hysteria against white males. So so when you say to people, taxation is forced taxation, socialism is a forced redistribution of wealth, people don't, thou shalt not steal. Well, I'm not religious. Why should I care about that? Or, well, it has positive outcomes to some people, therefore it's good. And so there is no particular way. I'm certainly, I'm acting on the desire for a positive outcome. I have to sort of avoid the word hope these days, but I'm acting with the desire for a positive outcome. But it could well be that simply what's going to have to happen is there's just going to have to be an enormous amount of suffering. And through that enormous amount of suffering, people will start listening to reason and evidence again. I wish it didn't have to be that way, but that's the way nature plays it. That's the way reality plays it. And hopefully there won't be so much suffering and so much technology exists to keep everyone alive that the dumb and propagandized simply will forever outbreed, outvote, outmaneuver, and outmob the smart people. But it's okay. At some point, we'll figure out how to get to space and go set something up somewhere else.
Yeah, I know, right? I don't know, Stefan. It's just, I feel like the entire system is just kind of pressing down pretty badly on average a man who actually doesn't want to embrace the whole idea of, bite into the whole idea of, hey, let's be all nice, pink, rainbows, and pretty. Like, I want to create a business. I work out. I don't want to be one of those men who just, I don't know, gets under the woman's heel and that's it. Because I've seen that happen so many times here. I had a few Russian friends who married American women, and one of them was going and shopping, and he was like, the wife told him to pick up some kind of a can. So he asked her like, hey, so where's the can is? And she's like, oh my God, you don't know where the can is. I'll do myself. Fine, I'll do it myself because you're incapable of that. I'm like, why are you allowing her to talk to you like that? Like, what is going on? Like, why you're so castrated? Like, traditional Russian men, if a woman speaks like that to a man in public, oh boy, she's in a lot of trouble. And I'm not talking about physical violence or anything else like that. The man is just not going to tolerate it. But here,
yeah, I mean, this is what it's referred to. If you've been around the MGTOW channels and all that, I mean, this is what's referred to as the shit test. The woman just being nasty, and I mean, in general, it seems to be that she's happier if the man responds assertively to her being nasty than if he just rolls over and says, "Okay, sorry, honey, I'll be good." Right? I mean, it's The woman, women to some degree want to make sure that you didn't go all beta on her, right? I mean, the men, when they get married, they're worried that the women are going to pull the pin on the fat grenade and balloon up. And women, when they marry the alpha, they don't want to end up with him slacking off and being the slow spinal question mark, turning into a beanbag alpha. Beta, sorry, on the couch. So yeah, they're going to test your metal from time to time. There's nothing wrong with it, but this idea that always deferring to women is going to make people happy, that's not being conciliatory. That's just being a coward and not standing up for what is best for you and your wife.
So how would I avoid that? Like, I'm just stuck.
Well, no, just in the dating scenario, I mean, you stand up for what's right. You don't act in a destructive way, and you don't allow other people to act in a destructive way towards you. And if a woman is being disrespectful or abusive or negative or hostile, you're just like, nope, we're not doing that. Not happening. That is really rude. I do not accept that kind of behavior. Find out.
I guess that makes sense.
You find out. And if she's like, well, you made me do it, or it's your fault, it's like, okay, bye. Like, bye. If a woman, if anyone behaves badly and then blames you for behaving badly, run. Run. I don't care if your pants are around your ankles. Leave them behind you, because it's better to be arrested for a misdemeanor than whatever else might happen.
Okay, that makes sense.
If I just started calling you an asshole because it took you a little time to respond to a tough question, I hope you'd hang up on me, right?
Well, I would want to know, why would you call me an asshole, to be honest, first?
Really?
Like, justifications.
Oh, that's your problem. No, that's your problem. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Listen, the first time we talk, I just call you an asshole because you're pausing to think about a response to a difficult question. What does it matter? What does it matter?
It doesn't.
It doesn't matter. This idea that we have to figure out why, you hear this all the time from libertarians and other people where they say, well, I don't know if the plan was simply because they were silly or because they had some bad. I don't care. I don't care. The behavior is what matters. The motivation, like trying to plumb the depths of people's meanness and try and figure out why they're mean and why they're this. Who cares? It doesn't matter. I don't ask the feelings of my infection when I take my antibiotics. I just want it gone.
And that's probably why I'm getting more drained, because I try to find out the reasons why.
Right.
Instead of just letting it go.
Don't. It doesn't matter what the motivations for malice are. And in fact, the desire that there's value in finding out the motivations of malice is just a giant net or trap that malicious people throw around you to keep you around them. You don't reward malice with attention. This is the basic, would there be any internet if this principle was followed? You don't engage with malice. You don't engage with evil. You don't engage with abuse. The very idea that you should is something that abusive people put forward so that you'll keep talking to them when they're assholes. We don't do it. Doesn't matter. You try and talk reason and evidence with someone, and if they just start taking a long social justice warrior psychedelic dump all over your reason and evidence, ban, click, disattach, disassociate, forget it. Forget it. No, you do not reward malice with eyeballs. Don't give focus to meanness. And I always keep talking about ostracism. Ostracism is the way to run a civilized society. This is what it looks like.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay.
And people plumb motivation in order to avoid arguments. The number of times people have done this, cheap-ass dime store bazooka Joe psychologizing on me. Why? Well, Steph does this because mommy issues. Or Steph does this because he's an old, angry white guy who doesn't like change. Or people like this is okay. Who cares? Can you deal with an argument? No. because I can pretend to plumb the depths of your consciousness, figure out your motivations so that I don't have to deal with what you're saying. It's hate speech. Do you have an argument? No, those people are full of hate, therefore they're wrong. It's like, that's not an argument. That's not an argument any more than these people are ballerinas.
Well, people forgetting that, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people are forgetting the value of the argument, and everybody just goes for, oh, he just called her racist. Great, she's a great speaker. All right, oh, he's a great speaker. Oh, she just called him bigot. Nice, she's a great speaker. It's like, I'm just looking at the politics and everything else. It's just throwing a bunch of like, as many insults as possible about how you culturally inappropriate, and that's the argument people trying to make without actually putting any facts or figures or anything else. And a lot of people are biting that. That's what scares me the most.
Idiots are always overwhelmed by the emotion at the expense of reason, and we just have many more idiots in public discourse than we used to. There used to be a barrier by which, public discourse used to be like a breakdancing competition at the top of Mount Everest. Not a lot of people made it up. So you had really, really fit, healthy people up there. Now, every idiot gets into college. Every idiot can contribute on the internet. There's no requirement for quality. And so idiots attract other idiots of the lowest common denominator. And the neofrontal cortex, the seat of intelligence, is kind of designed to overcome the impulses of the lizard brain. And so the smarter you are, the more you can overcome your emotional responses. And the dumber you are, the less you're able to overcome your emotional responses. And so because we have so many people in public discourse now who are basically complete idiots, immature, tantrum-throwing, wobbly-armed fools, well, what happens? Well, what happens is idiots cheer the burn. Feel the burn. Ooh, snap. Ooh, burn. Yeah, he said something mean to the other guy. He wins. Yeah, burn. It's basically turned into like drunken wrestling matches rather than intellectual thrust and parries. And so, I mean, you see this all the time on call-in shows, even shows that have some thin veneer of intellectualism like Bill Maher's show. Someone says something that's kind of an encapsulated, and the audience is like, yeah! And they just say, like, they just cheer because they're idiots. These people should be nowhere near intelligent public discourse, and in the past, they would never have made it up Everest, let alone have the energy to do the breakdancing. But just remember this: there are idiots have taken over public discourse, and by idiots, I don't just mean necessarily people who have a low IQ, but people who are R-selected and therefore susceptible to propaganda, because propaganda is all about tweaking the R-selected preference for comfort in the moment. Whereas K-selection is, I don't care if it's uncomfortable in the moment, I'm going to do what's right for the sake of the long-term good of myself, my gene pool, my tribe, my nation, my society, or whatever, right?
And that's what I feel like. I feel like this is a hippie movement from 1960s with just a lot more microphones to dumb people.
Yeah, and what was the 60s all about? Sex, drugs, rock and roll. Yeah, because that's how you build a good portfolio of stocks for retirement. Sex, drugs, rock and roll. I don't want to keep my herpes to myself. I'm going to socialize it. I'm sorry?
No, I just did this quick research about the hipster movement a couple years, and it's the same thing. Even the songs, they also wanted the socialism pretty badly. The hippies back in 1960s. Again, let's enjoy this life. Let's do drugs. Let's have sex, unprotected. Who cares? No responsibilities, no repercussions. Let's have a socialistic country where they will take care of us. But that movement was bound to fail because there are so many conservatives that give a large pushback around against it. The problem I see now is
it's like those anti-war songs. What is it good for? There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there telling me I've got to beware. And it's like, can you get an argument in there about, I don't know, easy money leading to war? I mean, you can, right? You can get, but anyway, it's just a bunch of nonsense. And no, the hippies have won, though, because the hippies climbed into academia and polluted the minds of the next generation, right? So the smarter hippies got straight into academia. I mean, even guys from the Weather Underground, a terrorist organization in the United States, ended up, it blew my mind when I first heard about this, through Ann Coulter, in demonic. Like the fact that genuine terrorists have ended up in American academia just tells you all you need to know. And the hippie movement, I did this research for my novel, Almost. And there was a very strong hippie movement in the 1920s and 1930s in Germany. And then people got so revolted by it that you got a swing. Now, the swing, of course, is a little less extreme in the West, hopefully or thankfully. But yeah, once you get these people into academia where they can't be fired and they start getting government funding to pull more and more people into their soupy leftist brain eroding nonsense, then it spreads like wildfire. And then, like a wildfire, sometimes you can do your best to contain it, but maybe the best you can do is let it burn itself out. And that's all we may be in for at the moment.
That's one of those things there we as a family are very, very afraid of. We just ran from socialism, man. We don't want to do it again.
No, I get that. And there's things that we can do, right? There's things that we can do. The government has the media in general. It has the movies. It has the television, because they hand out the licenses, right? They hand out the licenses and they subsidize the movies. And they have the education. They have the higher education. They've got a lot. All we have is 3 chords and the truth, right? As the song says. All we have is the microphone, the attention of the world such as we can command it, and the truth. And that's more than most have had throughout human history. So we should at least be grateful for that, I think.
Do you think we're in minority now compared to like 30, 40 years ago?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. But we also have infinitely greater capacity to reach the world. I mean, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have had, over 160 million downloads. Close to 200 million now. I mean, that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, Stefan, by the way.
If I can't be happy with that,
Mm-hmm.
if I can't be happy with the fact that through willpower, tenacity, and courage, and a continual goal of improving everything I do, if I can't be happy about the fact that I've added 200 million points of light in the minds of the world, what can I be happy with?
That makes sense. Completely.
All right, I'm going to move on to the next caller, but just don't waste your time with idiots, and find a good woman. And be public, I would say. It's still legal, and you can be public in what you talk about. And it only takes the courage to surmount disapproval, not to dodge bullets. And for that, we should be grateful.
Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you very much.